Hi everyone, welcome back to Earl Grey Books. I'm Ali and today we're here to do my April wrap up. So, as I mentioned in part 1, April has not been a good reading month for me. At the very end of March, in the last 2 days, I started taking anti-anxiety meds for the first time in a really long time, and it very much threw me off for those first 2 weeks. I was very unwell, and I'm doing a lot better now. They've kind of leveled out, but I was just really exhausted a lot of the time and I couldn't focus long enough to read. So I read 10 books in April in total, 2 of which were DNFs. We're going to talk about 4 of them today, and I will of course link part 1 below if you're interested in seeing that. We're going to start with a couple of stats and then we'll move on to the books. So like I said, 10 books, 2 of which were DNFs, 8 of which were new to me. I bought 27 books. I got a couple as gifts, so 27. I unhauled 20, so I ended up with 202 books on my TBR at the end of the month. So I was down to, from the end of March, which I ended with 204. So would have loved to have obviously squeezed a few more books in there, but I'm still pretty happy that I ended the month lower than what I started with. And of course, the only way that I did that was because I unhauled lots and lots of books. But let's get into the ones that I did read. So part of the reason as well as to why I didn't have that many was because I was very much in a one book state of mind. I'm not usually in that kind of frame of mind. I usually read anywhere from like 3 to 6 books at a time, but was just struggling this month. So I started off the middle of the month with The Complete Poems of John Keats. This took me a couple of days to read, but I really enjoyed it. I'd never read Keats in what's the word I'm looking for, in entirety. Before, I read things of his here and there, but only sort of a couple, and yeah, I loved it. I really enjoy romantic poetry, and I really enjoyed these. Next up, I have one that I was reading pretty much throughout the entire month of April and managed to finish it just before the end of the month, and that is Wanderlust by Rebecca Solnit. This is a non-fiction book about the history of walking. I loved the first 2 parts of this, and then kind of when we got towards the end I just lost interest. There's some really interesting stuff in there, and then it was just all of a sudden boring and I didn't really care, and it was a lot of repetition. Next up was my DNF, which was The Extraordinaries by TJ Klune. I was really enjoying this, but here's the thing. The main character has, I think it's ADHD. And I really enjoyed that, but also just because my mental health was struggling and that I was really struggling to focus, I found it extremely difficult to read where he was also having trouble focus, and his mind was all over the place because my mind was also in that state, and I just found it very hard to follow. And I just kept getting lost and confused, and I felt exhausted by that. Like I could only read a few pages and then I'd kind of feel tired. Even though this book is very funny and very enjoyable, yeah, just not in the right frame of mind. So I have DNF'd it, but it is one that I'm going to keep because I do want to come back to it, but I just think a couple of months down the road when my mind is in like a good, settled, organized space, and that's just not going to happen while I'm, getting used to these new meds and I'm at uni and I just have all this stuff going on. So yes, not a bad book. I think that lots of people would love this, but just one that I am going to come back to in the future. And then I finished the month off with September Love by Langleav. This is, of course, poetry. I've really enjoyed Langleav in the past. I didn't really like this one. And I think my problem with this is that every single poem and every single collection of Langleav's feels the same. She always talks about the same stuff and the same themes, and it feels like she's always talking about the same person, but in a way that's kind of like confusing, and the timeline doesn't really make any sense. Sorry, Percy is here. It's okay. He has an ear infection, so he's being a little bit even more sooky than usual, the poor babe. He'll be fine though. But yes, it just feels very like, are they together? Are they not? Because I know that I think she's married to another poet, Michael Fedor or something like that. So I'm like, is it about him? Because then that's kind of confusing, because it says that they're still together, but like the poetry reads like they're not. Or is it like a completely different person from her past? It's just very confusing. And I just think that it could have been fixed a little bit if the poems just had more of an order to them, because it does kind of very much feel like you're just kind of, you're jumping forward and then you're like getting taken back, and just like constantly in and out and up and down and around. And yeah, I just think it could have done with a better order to the poems. But those are the 4 that I read in the second half of April. I'm already doing better with May, both medically and with reading, so I will hopefully see you at the mid-month point with quite a few books read. I hope you're all doing super well. I hope you're having a lovely week, and I will see you guys next time. I believe my next video is my Eurovision-a-thon vlog for week 2, so I'll see you then. Bye.